The orbital station Haven's respite hummed with the quiet tension of a predator waiting to strike. Its curved, organic halls pulsed with a faint bioluminescence of Zephyrian architecture, the walls breathing like living tissue. Captain Elias Voss hated the place. It smelled like wet chitin and something vaguely acidic, a reminder that humans weren't just guests here. They were tolerated for now. He adjusted the collar of his dress uniform, the fabric stiff against his neck. Across the negotiation table, High Overseer Sherthak loomed, his iridescent carapace catching the dim light in shifting patterns of blue and violet. 4 multi-jointed arms rested on the table, claws tapping a slow, deliberate rhythm. Ambassador Lyra Chen sat beside Voss, her posture relaxed, but her fingers drummed a silent counter, rhythm against her thigh. She was good at this, better than him. At least, diplomacy wasn't his forte. But when the Zephyrians summoned a human military representative to discuss terms, Earth Command hadn't sent a politician. They'd sent him. Sherthak's mandibles clicked, the sound grating against Voss' ears. The Dominion has reviewed your tenancy records, the Overseer said, his voice a wet rasp. And we find them lacking. Chen smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lacking in what way, Overseer? Compliance. One of Sherthak's secondary arms unfolded, gesturing to a holographic projection that flickered to life above the table. It showed Eden's reach, the lush green and blue of the human colony world, dotted with domed cities and terraforming arrays. Your species has violated Article 7 of the Galactic Tenancy Accord. Unauthorized infrastructure expansion, unapproved energy grid modifications. The hologram zoomed in, highlighting fusion reactors and irrigation networks. Primitive, inefficient, and in direct violation of Dominion oversight. Voss clenched his jaw. We built those reactors because your approved cores kept failing in our atmosphere, and the irrigation. Your people said the soil was unsuitable for earth crops. Funny how it's producing record yields now. Sherthak's antennae twitched. Irrelevant, the accord is clear. All modifications require Dominion approval. You have none. Chen leaned forward. We filed 17 requests for those approvals, all denied or lost in processing. Then you should have waited, Voss snorted. We did for 3 years. The Overseer's claws stopped tapping. The Dominion does not negotiate with tenants. You will vacate Eden's reach within 30 standard cycles. All human infrastructure will remain for reclamation by the proper authorities. Silence. Voss felt the weight of the words settle over the room like a burial shroud. Head expected posturing. Maybe some new round of bureaucratic hurdles. Not this. Chen's voice was dangerously calm. That's not a negotiation. That's an eviction. Sherthak's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Call it what you will. The decision is final. The Galactic Tenancy Council has already ratified it. Voss' hand drifted to the sidearm at his hip, purely out of habit. He didn't draw it. But the way Sherthak's compound eyes tracked the movement told him the gesture hadn't gone unnoticed. You're making a mistake, Voss said, low and quiet. The Overseer straightened, his carapace clicking as he rose to his full height, towering over both humans. No, Captain, you did. The Dominion does not fear the protests of lesser species. You have no fleet, no allies, no recourse. He turned, his chitinous robes whispering against the floor. 30 cycles. After that, we will remove you. The door hissed shut behind him, leaving Voss and Chen alone in the pulsing, organic gloom. Chen exhaled sharply. Well, that could have gone better. Voss stared at the spot where Sherthak had stood. It's not over. She raised an eyebrow. You heard him. The council's already signed off. What's left? A slow, grim smile spread across Voss' face. The part where they find out what happens when we stop playing by their rules. Outside the viewport, the massive bulk of the USN Ironclad hung in silent orbit, its angular hull a stark contrast to the flowing Zephyrian architecture. Dark waiting. Voss tapped his comm. Lieutenant Cade, prep the ironclad for immediate departure and send a priority message to Admiral Rook. Chen frowned. What are you going to tell him? Voss' smile didn't waver. That it's time to remind the galaxy why you don't evict humans. The air in the colony's main dome was thick, with the scent of freshly turned soil and the hum of hydroponic generators. Lieutenant Mara Cade wiped sweat from her brow as she adjusted the settings on a fusion regulator. Around her, the agricultural sector buzzed with activity, human engineers and farmers working side by side under the artificial sunlight filtering through the dome's transparent panels. A sudden ripple of tension passed through the room. The heavy airlock doors hissed open, and a group of Zephyrian inspectors strode in, their chitinous limbs clicking against the metal walkways. Overseer Vexis led the pack, his iridescent carapace gleaming under the lights. His multifaceted eyes scanned the human equipment with obvious disdain. Pathetic, Vexis muttered, his voice a grating buzz. You call this terraforming? This is barely more than a dirt patch. Mara clenched her jaw but kept her voice level. It's enough to feed our people, that's all that matters. Vexis let out a derisive chitter, his mandibles twitching. Your people won't be here much longer. The Dominion has already filed the eviction notice. This place will be reclaimed by species who actually understand how to cultivate a world. One of the other inspectors, a smaller Zephyrian with duller plating, tapped a claw against a fusion reactor's casing. These are outdated. Primitive, our bio, cores are far more efficient. Why do you insist on clinging to such fragile technology? Mara's fingers tightened around her wrench. Fragile. She stepped forward, her boots thudding against the grating. These reactors have kept us alive for 3 years straight without a single failure. They've weathered solar flares, dust storms, and even a damn meteor shower. You call that fragile? Vexis waved a dismissive limb. Your stubbornness is amusing. But it won't save you. The Dominion doesn't tolerate squatters. A low murmur spread through the human workers nearby. Mara could feel their eyes on her, waiting for her response. She took a slow breath, then smirked. You know, Overseer, Therese, something you should understand about humans. Vexis tilted his head, antennae twitching. Enlighten me. Mara's smile didn't reach her eyes. We're only polite until we're not. And you're about to see what happens when we stop being polite. The Zephyrian's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Empty threats. Your kind has no fleet, no real weapons. What exactly do you think you can do? Mara didn't answer. Instead, she turned back to the reactor, tapping a sequence into the control panel. The machine hummed louder, its core glowing brighter. Vexis watched her for a moment, then scoffed. Enjoy your last days here. Human, the Dominion's enforcers will arrive soon, and when they do, you'll learn your place. He turned and strode away, his entourage following. The airlock hissed shut behind them, leaving the humans in tense silence. One of the engineers, a grizzled man named Harris, spat on the ground. Bastards. They've been looking for an excuse to kick us out since day one. Mara stared at the closed airlock, her expression unreadable. They're not here to inspect, Harris. They're here to intimidate. Harris frowned. You think they'll really send enforcers? Mara's fingers danced over the reactor's controls again, inputting another command. The display flickered, then showed a hidden submenu. Oh, they'll send them all right. And when they do, she tapped the final key. A low resonant pulse echoed through the dome, barely audible. They'll wish they hadn't. Harris blinked. What did you just do? Mara turned to face the rest of the workers, her voice steady. Everyone. Listen up, we've got work to do, and we've got very little time to do it. The colonists exchanged glances, then nodded. If Mara said it was time, they trusted her. Because Mara Cade didn't make empty threats, and the Superians were about to learn that the hard way. The comm channel crackled to life, filling the bridge of the Titan's fist with the hissing, multi-tonal voice of Grand Viceroy Zalthis. Admiral Hal Rook leaned forward in his command chair, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic projection of the Superian leader. Zalthis' chitinous faceplates twitched in what humans had learned was the equivalent of a sneer. "Admiral Rook," Zalthis intoned, his voice dripping with condescension. "The Dominion does not enjoy repeating itself. Your presence on Eden's Reach is in violation of Galactic Tenancy Accord subsection Phi B. You have 24 hours to evacuate. Failure to comply will result in enforcement." Rook didn't blink. He had spent 30 years in the United Earth Stellar Navy, and if there was one thing he had learned, it was that bullies only understood one language. "Enforcement," Rook repeated, rolling the word around like a bad taste. "That's a fancy way of saying you'll glass the colony." Zalthis' mandibles twitched again, a crude interpretation but not incorrect. "Your species lacks the resilience to hold territory in this sector. The Dominion cannot allow such fragility to destabilize the region." Behind Rook, Lieutenant Commander Reyes muttered under her breath, "Fragility, that's rich." Rook ignored her, keeping his gaze locked on the hologram. "You're making a mistake, Viceroy." "No," Zalthis hissed. "You made the mistake when you assumed you belonged among the stars. Look at your fleet, Admiral, a handful of outdated warships. No allies, no leverage. The Galactic Council has already sided with us. You have no chance." The bridge was silent. Every officer on the Titan's fist had stopped what they were doing, their eyes flicking between the Admiral and the projection. Rook let the silence stretch, just long enough to make Zalthis shift uncomfortably. Then he smirked. "We've heard that before." Zalthis' antennae stiffened. "This is not a negotiation. The clock is ticking. Admiral, 24 hours. Then the Hive's judgment will cleanse Eden's Reach of your presence." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Reyes was the first to speak. "Sir, they're not bluffing. Scans show the Hive's judgment moving into position. It's got enough firepower to crack the planet's crust." Rook exhaled slowly, tapping a finger against the armrest of his chair. "I know," across the bridge. Ensign Carter swallowed hard. "Admiral, what are we going to do?" Rook stood, his boots clicking against the metal deck as he walked toward the main viewport. Outside, the distant gleam of Eden's Reach hung against the black, a blue-green jewel wrapped in thin clouds. The Hive's judgment loomed over it like a vulture, its organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent veins. "We're going to let them think they've won?" Rook said quietly. Reyes frowned. "Sir?" Rook turned, his expression unreadable. "Recall all personnel from the surface. Full evacuation protocol. Make it look panicked. I want the Superians to see us running." A slow grin spread across Reyes' face as understanding dawned. "You're setting a trap." Rook didn't answer. He didn't need to. On the surface of Eden's Reach, Lieutenant Mara Cade watched as the last transport lifted off, its engines flaring against the twilight sky. The colony was eerily quiet now, the domes empty, the streets deserted. Only the wind moved through the abandoned fields, rustling the genetically modified wheat that had been the pride of the settlement. Beside her, Corporal Jensen adjusted his rifle strap. "This feels wrong. Lelty letting them think they scared us off." Cade didn't take her eyes off the horizon. "They'll learn." A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Cade didn't need to look up to know what it was. The Superian drop pods streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. "Right on schedule," Jensen muttered. Cade tapped her earpiece. "All units fall back to secondary positions. Let them land. Let them get comfortable." She could almost hear the grin in Captain Voss' voice over the comm. "Copy that, Lieutenant. Enjoy the show." The first pod hit the ground 50 meters away, its organic hull splitting open like a seed pod. A squad of Zephyrian warriors emerged, their chitin gleaming under Eden's twin moons. Their leader, a hulking brute with serrated forelimbs, scanned the empty colony with obvious disdain. Pathetic, it hissed. They fled like vermin. Cade's finger hovered over the detonator in her palm. Not quite, she whispered, and pressed the button. The ground beneath the Zephyrians erupted in a firestorm of plasma charges, the shockwave rippling through the colony like thunder. The warriors barely had time to scream before the secondary explosions tore through their ranks, the hidden munitions turning the landing zone into a killing field. Cade didn't wait to watch. She was already moving, sprinting for the underground bunker where the rest of her team waited. Overhead, the sky burned. On the bridge of the Hive's judgment, Battlemaster Krax snarled as the feed from the surface flickered and died. What just happened? His tactical officer flinched. The humans. They rigged the colony. It was a trap. Krax's claws dug into the command console, ichor dripping from the cracks. Impossible. They had no warning. The officer hesitated. Unless they knew we were coming. A cold realization settled over Krax. He turned to the viewport, where the Titan's fist hung motionless in the void. Too motionless, too calm. This isn't a colony, Krax whispered. It's a testing ground. And then the ironclad opened fire. The Zephyrian swarm. Frigates descended through Eden's reach's atmosphere like a storm of locusts, their chitinous hulls glistening under the pale sun. Battlemaster Krax stood on the command deck of the lead vessel, his 4 compound eyes scanning the colony below through the organic view. Screen, his mandibles twitched in anticipation. Pathetic, he hissed, his voice a wet rasp. They fled like the weaklings they are. The colony sprawled beneath them. Domes, silos, and fusion reactors, all silent. No movement, no energy signatures, just empty streets and abandoned fields. Scan for traps, Krax ordered, though he didn't expect any. Humans were predictable. They ran when outmatched. A subordinate chirped nervously. Battlemaster, the scans show no life signs, no power fluctuations, just nothing. Krax's antennae twitched. Too easy. Send in the ground team, secure the central hub. I want confirmation before we torch this infestation. Below the swarm, frigates disgorged their troops, hundreds of Zephyrian warriors, their armored exoskeletons clicking as they fanned out through the colony. Their clawed feet crunched on the gravel paths, their weapons raised, but there was nothing to shoot. Inside the central hub, Overseer Vexis stepped through the open doors, his mandibles curled in disgust. Look at this, he sneered, kicking over a human datapad. They left in such a hurry they didn't even secure their equipment. A warrior nearby tapped a console. Systems are offline, no residual energy. It's as if they just walked away. Vexis scoffed. Typical. Humans talk big, but when faced with real power, a soft beep interrupted him. It came from the center of the room, a single device, no larger than a human fist, blinking a steady red light. Vexis froze. Krax's voice crackled over the comms. Report, what is that? Vexis stepped closer, his chitin prickling. Some kind of beacon. Then the device stopped blinking. A voice, human, calm, echoed through the empty hub. Welcome to the eviction party. The ground trembled. Krax's frigate lurched violently as alarms shrieked across the fleet. Battlemaster energy spike. Massive. The entire colony is... The sky ignited. Hidden beneath the soil, beneath the domes, beneath every structure the Zephyrians had mocked as primitive. Thousands of human plasma charges detonated in sequence. The colony didn't burn. It erupted. Firestorms ripped through the streets, swallowing Zephyrian warriors whole. The domes shattered, not from explosions, but from the sheer force of electromagnetic pulses frying every biocircuit in the vicinity. Crack's frigate listed sideways as its organic systems spasmed. Evasive maneuvers, he screeched too late. From the smoke and fire, railgun rounds streaked upward, hypervelocity slugs punching through chitinous hulls like paper. Crack's view. Screen flickered as another frigate exploded, its bio-core rupturing in a spray of green ichor. Where are they firing from? Cracks demanded. The answer came in the form of the USN Ironclad decloaking directly above them, its armored prow gleaming in the firelight. Captain Voss' face filled Crack's comm screen, his expression ice-cold. "You wanted to evict us," Voss said. "Here's our counteroffer." The Ironclad's main batteries fired. Crack's world dissolved in fire and screaming metal. On the surface, Lieutenant Mara Cade watched from a hidden bunker, her fingers dancing over a control panel. "Activate secondary defenses," she murmured. Across the colony, automated turrets rose from concealed compartments, their barrels humming to life. Human-made, human-tested, and very eager to introduce themselves. A Zephyrian warrior stumbled into the open, his carapace scorched. He looked up just in time to see a turret swivel toward him. Cade smirked. Eviction notice delivered. The Zephyrian swarm frigates descended through Eden's Reach's atmosphere, their chitinous hulls glistening with bioluminescent streaks. Battlemaster Cracks flexed his serrated forelimbs in anticipation. The humans had fled like the weaklings they were. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction as his forces fanned out across the abandoned colony. "Pathetic," Cracks hissed through the comms. "They left their homes like frightened prey. Sweep the area, burn what remains." His warriors moved through the empty streets, their clawed feet clicking against the prefab human structures. The domes stood silent, the fusion reactors cold. Only the wind whistled through the gaps. Then Cracks saw it. A single device sat in the center of the colony square, blinking a steady, mocking red. His ventral plates tightened. "What is?" the ground erupted. Hidden beneath the colony's surface, a network of human-made tunnels detonated in sequence, swallowing Zephyrian patrols. Whole Crack's frigate lurched as the shockwave hit, throwing him against the command throne. Alarms shrieked through the bio, ship's nerve clusters. "Ambush!" Cracks roared. Above them, the sky split open. The USN Ironclad decloaked like a spectre made steel, its railgun batteries already spinning to life. Captain Elias Voss, voice crackled across every Zephyrian channel, calm and lethal. "Welcome to the neighborhood." The first railgun salvo tore through 3 swarm frigates before they could raise shields. Cracks watched in horror as his ships burst apart, their organic armor useless against human kinetics. "Return fire," he screeched. The Zephyrian bio cannons swiveled, only to find their targeting systems jammed. Static hissed through their comms, replaced by a new voice. "Ah, about that." Dr. Emil Joust's tone was cheerful, as if discussing the weather. "You really shouldn't have landed." Crack's frigate shuddered as the colonies abandoned. Fusion reactors roared back to life, only now they weren't powering farms. They were powering plasma turrets. The first blast sheared through Crack's portside wing, sending his ship spiraling. He barely had time to register the other defense platforms rising from hidden silos before the ironclad's second salvo punched through his bridge. On the Titan's fist, Admiral Hal Rook watched the carnage unfold with grim satisfaction. The Dominion had walked right into their trap. "All stations," Rook said. "Light them up." Across Eden's Reach, human forces emerged from underground bunkers, their armor scorched but their rifles steady. Lieutenant Mara Cade led the first countercharge, her squad cutting down Zephyrian warriors caught in the open. "You came to evict us," Cade shouted over the din of battle, her voice carrying across the chaos. "Try evicting plasma fire." The hidden defense grid activated in full, turning the sky into a storm of burning shrapnel and ionized death. Crack's remaining ships tried to flee, only to find the orbital lanes blocked by the ironclad sister vessels. Dr. Zhao's face appeared on Crack's dying view screen, the human scientist adjusting his glasses with infuriating calm. Funny thing about tenants, Joe said, sometimes they renovate. The last thing Crack saw was the ironclad's main cannon glowing white, hot before his world dissolved in fire. On the surface, Captain Voss stepped over the smoldering wreckage of a Zephyrian dropship, his boots crunching on broken chitin. He tapped his comm. "Admiral, the property's been repossessed." Rook's chuckle was dark. "Good. Now let's show the landlords what happens when they forget who really owns the place." Above them, the Titan's fist powered up its stolen weapon, the Zephyrian superweapon humanity had turned against its creators. The Oblivion cannon hummed to life, its targeting systems locked onto the retreating Dominion fleet. For the first time in galactic history, the eviction notice had been served to the wrong species. The Hive's judgment loomed over Eden's reach, its grotesque organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent veins. Grand Viceroy Zalthis flexed his chitinous claws, mandibles twitching in satisfaction as his swarm frigates descended toward the abandoned colony. The humans had fled, just as expected, weak, predictable. Then the sky ignited. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as the Hive's judgment sensors overloaded. Zalthis whirled, his compound eyes reflecting the sudden hellscape outside the viewports. The empty fields of Eden's reach erupted in pillars of fire as hidden defense platforms surged to life. Railgun rounds tore through Zephyrian frigates like paper, their organic armor vaporizing under the barrage. "Battle stations," Zalthis screeched. "Where are they firing from?" A junior officer's antennae trembled. "The colony was a decoy, Grand Viceroy, the humans. They wanted us to land." Before Zalthis could respond, space itself seemed to fracture. Reality twisted as a dozen human warships ripped into existence from warp, their angular hulls blotting out the stars. At their lead, the Titan's fist locked its forward batteries onto the Hive's judgment. Admiral Hal Rook's face filled the comm screen, his grin sharp enough to cut glass. "Grand Viceroy, you were saying something about no fleet." Zalthis' carapace rattled with fury. "Impossible. Your kind had no warp capable." "Oh, we've had it for years," Rook interrupted. "But why show our hand when we could let you underestimate us instead?" The Titan's fist's main weapon array hummed to life, a monstrous hybrid of human engineering and stolen Zephyrian tech. The Oblivion cannon reverse, engineered from a wrecked Dominion superweapon, pulsed with energy. Science Overseer Eurex, aboard a nearby frigate, recoiled as his scanners identified the signature. "That's our technology." "How?" Dr. Emil Zhao's voice crackled over an open channel, dripping with smug satisfaction. "You left the blueprints lying around after the Battle of Cygnus. We improved them." The Oblivion cannon fired. A beam of pure annihilation lanced across the void, shearing through the Hive's judgment's starboard flank. The living warship screamed, an actual, biological scream. As half its biomass disintegrated, Zalthis staggered, his exoskeleton cracking against the deck. "All ships, return fire," he howled. But the human fleet was already moving. Swarm frigates exploded as the ironclad's railguns found their marks. Captain Elias Voss' voice was ice over the comms. "You came to evict us. Overseer, bad call." The Titan's fist's secondary batteries unleashed a storm of plasma, carving through Zephyrian reinforcements. Admiral Rook leaned forward, his eyes locked on Zalthis' flickering image. "You called us tenants, said we didn't belong." Space rippled again and again. More human ships, dozens more. The entire FARD frontier fleet, emerging from warp in perfect formation. Rook's smile vanished. "We own this neighborhood now." The Zephyrian lines shattered. Frigates broke formation, some colliding in their panic. The Hive's judgment, bleeding organic fluid into the void, attempted to retreat, only for the Titan's fist to block its path. Zalthis hissed, his mandibles quivering. This This is treason against the Galactic Tenancy Accord. Rook barked a laugh. Funny, we checked the fine print. He tapped a command into his console. Turns out, squatters' rights apply when the landlord tries illegal eviction. The Oblivion cannon recharged. Zalth's final transmission was a wordless screech as the beam tore his flagship in half. Across the system, human forces pressed the attack. Lieutenant Mara Cade, watching from Eden's Reach's command bunker, keyed her comm. All ground teams move out. Time to renovate. Hidden hatches slid open across the colony. Human soldiers in powered armor surged forth, their rifles cutting down the remaining Superior inspectors. Overseer Vexis, cornered in the agricultural dome, raised his forelimbs in surrender. You planned this from the beginning. He stammered. Cade's helmet retracted, revealing her cold smile. We're tenants. Vexis, we read the lease. She leveled her sidearm. Now get off our lawn. Above them, the last Superior warships fled into warp, trailing debris and plasma. Admiral Rook's voice echoed across every human channel, every Superior frequency, every Galactic Council monitor, watching in stunned silence. Attention, Dominion. You have 24 hours to withdraw from all human-claimed systems. A pause, or we'll start evicting you. The transmission cut in the silence that followed. Ambassador Lyra Chen, aboard the Titan's Fist, turned to her aide. Draft a new treaty, call it the Human Tenancy Act. The aide blinked terms. Chen watched the burning remnants of the Hive's judgment drift past the viewport. 5 systems, full sovereignty, and a very clear message. She smiled. Next time, they'll ask before calling us tenants. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so silent. The curved walls, usually alive with the murmurs of 100 species, stood frozen as Ambassador Lyra Chen stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, the sound echoing like gunfire in the tense air. Behind her, the holographic displays showed the smoldering wreckage of the Hive's judgment, its once proud organic hull, now a broken carcass adrift in the void. High Overseer Sherthak sat slumped in the defendant's enclosure, his iridescent chitin dulled to a sickly grey. His mandibles twitched as Chen approached, her expression unreadable. The other delegates, Vorak, Ceralian, even the normally smug Vespidians, watched with a mix of awe and fear. None of them had expected this. None of them had believed the humans could do it. Chen placed a single datapad on the table in front of Sherthak. The screen flickered to life, displaying the terms of the Human Tenancy Act in bold, unflinching letters. 5-star systems, full sovereignty, reparations for every colony the Superiors had seized. You can't be serious, Sherthak hissed, his voice trembling. This is extortion. Chen tilted her head, a small, cold smile playing at her lips. No, extortion would imply we're asking for something we didn't earn. She tapped the pad, and the screen shifted to footage of the Titan's Fist's final salvo, the Oblivion cannon tearing through Superior lines like paper. We took these fair and square. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Ceralian delegates' floating orbs pulsed with unease. The Vorak ambassador, a hulking brute who had once scoffed at human softness, now refused to meet Chen's gaze. Grand Viceroy Zalthis, his once pristine carapace now cracked and scorched, staggered forward. You knew, he rasped. You knew we'd come for Eden's Reach. You let us walk into that trap. Chen didn't blink. We're tenants, remember? You kept saying it fragile, temporary. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper the entire chamber could hear. But here's the thing about tenants, Viceroy. Sometimes they buy the building. Admiral Rook's face appeared on the central holo display, his scarred features set in grim satisfaction. Behind him, the Titan's Fist loomed, its railguns still humming with residual charge. The Superior Dominion has 24 hours to sign, he said, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 warships. After that, we stop asking nicely. Sherthak's claws trembled as he reached for the stylus. The datapad screen flashed as his biometric signature locked in the terms. The moment it did, a cheer erupted from the human delegation. Engineers, soldiers, diplomats, who had spent years being sneered at, dismissed, underestimated. Chen straightened, folding her arms as she watched the Zephyrians slink away. The Vorak ambassador finally met her eyes, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. You planned this from the start, didn't you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to the window, where the lights of human ships now dotted the orbit of Cententrum. Let's just say we've had a lot of practice with landlords trying to push us around. As the chamber emptied, the Cerelian delegate floated closer, his orbs flickering with something like respect. What happens now? Chen grinned. Now? She nodded toward the stars. Now we redecorate. Outside, the ironclad and Titan's fist stood guard, their hulls gleaming under the artificial sun. And for the first time in galactic history, the humans weren't just tenants. They were the ones holding the keys.